Welcome, everyone. This is Vern Buckley with the Vern Buckley Review. We're here today to talk about HR 1 with Professor Erasmus Chomsky. Welcome, Professor. I'm okay. I'm excited to talk to you about this and to disprove the falsehoods of HR 1. So let me ask you a little bit of a question, because what is going on with HR 1? I mean, it seems to me like this is going to be something which is going to take away all the power of organizations doing good stuff to make a difference. It's going to destroy free speech. I think this is going to really hurt organizations like corporations. It's going to hurt nonprofit organizations, even unions, by its obstruction of free speech. And yet you're supporting this thing.
Well, Vern, it's definitely always a pleasure to be on your show, and we have a lot of very thought-provoking discussions. I hope that I can assuage some of your concerns about HR 1. So if we look at the broader political landscape in America right now, we have entities like corporations, and to your point, like unions, like some media organizations, and other individuals who just have these massive amounts of money to spend and put their money into the election cycle every couple years. And in the last few years, politicians, there's so many examples of where the priorities for legislation that's moved forward and passed, and legislation that's not moved forward and passed, has really been more in response to the priorities of those donors with these massive amounts of money, rather than the American people.
And well, what's wrong? What's wrong with donors being able to spend lots of money on elections?
Well, so if you look at the actual provisions in HR 1, there are not provisions that restrict the amounts of money that corporations, unions, and other entities and other individuals can put into the system. This legislation was carefully crafted to avoid actually restricting the part of the money going from those entities into the system. What HR 1 does do is say that, okay, if you're going to donate $10 million into the system, well, the American people have the right to some transparency in terms of knowing where that money is coming from, and there's going to be requirements on the disclosure of donations that are over a certain amount. And what HR 1 additionally does is have an opt-in system for public financing of campaigns, so that politicians and candidates for office, there would be a matching system for them. If they raise small donations, they can then have that those small donations matched numerous times over with public financing. And if you opt into that system, then there are some limits in terms of what you can accept as a politician or as a candidate, but there are not actually restrictions on what entities can put into the system.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Snowflake. I think we've had enough from you today. Anyhow, this is Vern Buckley for my review. Thank you. And that is our little play. So now we're going to talk about this a little bit. If you have any questions for us, feel free to share them on Twitter. You can also text us. And we're also on Facebook as well. So feel free to reach out to us and ask us some questions. My name is Ben. My pronouns are vi and ver.
And I'm Rob, and my pronouns are he and him.
And so yeah, what did you make of all that? What were we talking about there?
Well, I mean, Ben, your character really was trying to hone in on this idea that frequently comes up when we have discussions about campaign finance reform. That that speech is money, and that if you're restricting, if you put restrictions on the amount of money that you can donate, you're restricting somebody's free speech rights and their First Amendment rights. And a lot of this, a good part of this discussion got into how HR1 is carefully crafted so that while there are some requirements in terms of the in terms of the money that goes into the system, in terms of it needing to be disclosed, and what happens when you like with the opt-in system and public financing and restrictions on candidates accepting certain money, there are not actually restrictions. HR1 was carefully crafted so that there are not actually restrictions on people and organizations being able to donate into the system.
So it's like kind of a loophole around Citizens United, right? Like
Exactly.
that we can actually so we're not actually saying if money is free speech, we're not violating the Constitution in this case. But that means that politicians who want to be responsive to the will of the people, to actually have to raise small donations and then get that money, but then they can't also take big donations as well. And so it creates a competitive system where politicians can be responsive.
Yeah, it definitely does create a more competitive system, and I think we'll be here. I mean, we'll be hearing from the side of the people opposed to HR1 about how this is going to make it less competitive if you're restricting what can go into the system. On the other hand, though, I think we're going to hear a lot of people who are supporting HR1 who are saying that the system as it is right now is not very competitive because the legislation that gets acted on and doesn't get acted on does, as my character was saying, reflect the priorities of people who have a lot of money. And the idea would be that with the public financing system, that changes the incentive structure for politicians and for candidates, so that they have to be, if they're accepting the public money, well, then they're more responsive to the concerns of the public and not just the members of the public with lots of money.
Yeah, and like also you kind of have that problem that we experienced in Illinois, right? Where like in Illinois, right, there was the problem of the fair tax, right? Where in the last days of the campaign, just tons of ads were run, many of them not even true. But we were flooded with ads about the fair tax saying that this was going to take away people's pensions, that it was going to result in higher taxes for working people, even though all of it was metaphysical and theoretical. None of it was actually based on what the law that was about to be passed would be.
Yeah. There were definitely lots of strawman arguments and other, slippery slope effect arguments where what didn't necessarily reflect the reality and the potential reality, and we're already starting to hear a lot of those a lot of those same arguments when we're talking about HR1, when we hear people who are opposed to HR1 talking about how stifling it's going to be for the free speech rights of people who want to donate.
Yeah, and just so our audience gets to see real quick, this is the site that we actually got this argument from, and one of their slippery slope arguments was that that if we let HR1 pass, that this would set a dangerous precedent, right? So we do this, and it would set for groups like us, would significantly restrict the ability of numerous organizations to carry out political policy work. It would eventually open the door for limiting our own speech, right? If we believe that limiting speech for people or groups we disagree with, this is eventually going to limit more speech, which is a perfect slippery slope, right?
Yeah.
So
definitely a perfect slippery slope there.
Yeah, and the straw man argument was kind of saying that this is going to limit free speech, when that would be an argument maybe if it was a different thing against Citizens United, but in this case that wasn't the case, and you were debunking that in the debate.
Yeah.
So, any other thoughts?
I mean, in terms of our conversation, it seemed like it was a pretty thorough and robust discussion of what HR1 is really about, and what it is not about, at least in terms of in terms of the specifics of the law.
Yeah. So for our audience, if you have any feedback or anything, feel free to share the feedback with us. Feel free to share how you like the video, and if your experience was positive, negative, or neutral, what matters to you in these videos. If there's other stuff about HR1 that you'd like. Also, if you're interested in supporting HR1, you can call your senator, 202-224-3121, and that'll get you to the Senate switchboard. Another thing, if you want to make a video like this with us or get involved and volunteer, again, you can either send us a text or find us on Twitter at Cause Conscience. So this has been great as always, Rob. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Ben. Always fun and productive to be pushing the ball forward for democracy.
That's right. I'm looking forward to doing more with you.
Yep.
Thanks a lot. All right, everyone. Have a great day. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for tuning in.